Terletak di antara dua sungai, Tigris dan Euphrates yang dikenali sebagai tamadun Mesopotamia, direkodkan bermulanya sejarah peradaban terawal manusia sekitar 8,000 tahun dahulu. Kemudian dunia menyaksikan ketamadunan manusia berkembang muncul di bumi Mesir, Indus, China, Yunani dan Rom. Melangkah ke era Masihi, garis masa menyusuri zaman kegemilangan Islam. Merosotnya tamadun Kristian Eropah sebelum mereka bangkit dan menerajui era penerokaan, membawa kepada zaman kolonisasi, mencetuskan perang dunia dan pelbagai peristiwa di antaranya yang tercatat dalam lipatan sejarah sehingga membawa kita ke hari ini. Ketika manusia terus melangkah ke hadapan, kita tetap berusaha mencari asal-usul peradaban, cuba mencari jawapan. Sebelum orang Sumeria di Mesopotamia, bagaimanakah kehidupan manusia di muka bumi ini?
Now we have a different view to this story.
When you become sedentary and when you start staying in one space or one place, you start to have bigger families, the population increases.
Dan pintunya terbuka dengan terbongkarnya kewujudan beberapa tapak arkeologi, antaranya di Turki yang dipanggil Tas Tepeler.
Now we have a different opinion to understand, to explain the early Neolitik life in this southeast, in this region in southeast Anatolia.
Terletak di wilayah tenggara Turki, Tas Tepeler bermaksud bukit batu atau stone hill adalah kompleks yang dikenal pasti menjadi pusat tumpuan masyarakat purba Neolitik. Salah satu tapaknya adalah Göbekli Tepe, ditemukan pada 1963 oleh Harold Campbell dan Robert Brentwood melalui projek usaha-sama Universiti Istanbul dan University of Chicago. Bagaimanapun ketika itu, mereka tidak melihatnya sebagai satu penemuan luar biasa.
The German Archaeological Institute has been working at Göbekli Tepe since the very beginnings of excavations here in 1995. The site was discovered in 1963 in the frame of research archaeological surveys in the region by an American-Turkish team. And in the mid-1990s, first excavations actually started under the directorship of Harald Hauptmann, who was at the time the first director of the German Archaeological Institute Istanbul Department, and his colleague Klaus Schmidt. Now, in the past 25 years, a lot of excavation work has been done, a lot of research has been done.
Schmidt mendapati dan percaya Göbekli Tepe adalah sebuah pusat aktiviti sosial tertua di dunia setakat ini. Terbina ketika zaman batu baharu atau Neolitik, kira-kira 10,000 sebelum Masihi atau sekitar 12,000 tahun yang lalu. Ini bermakna ia dipercayai telah dibina kira-kira 7,000 tahun lebih awal sebelum pembinaan piramid Mesir dan Stonehenge di England. Malah sebelum terciptanya sistem tulisan mahupun roda.
What we've actually discovered at Göbekli Tepe is a series of monumental structures, commonly referred to as temples. I prefer the term special buildings because I don't like these interpretive terms. So these special buildings are characterized by very large, upright, T-shaped monoliths carved from the local limestone, which was quarried around the site on the plateau. They reach heights of up to 5.5 meters. They were carved from one piece. And the buildings, these special buildings, of which there are several, they're characterized by two larger T-pillars in the center, and they're surrounded by several others, about a dozen others, at regular intervals, which are inserted into the walls of the buildings. I say buildings because these structures were actually covered over. They were buildings, and the entrance was usually through the roof, through a portal stone. But in earlier phases also there were regular entrances, floor level entrances. But as I say, these buildings were multi-phase, which means they were long-lived buildings. This is quite a new result. Previously it was thought they weren't that long-lived, but now we know they were probably being used for several centuries, in fact, much like modern churches or mosques or other ritual or religious buildings. And of course they changed over time. I think these buildings are also important because of the symbolism, of course, involved. If you look at the constellation of the T-pillars, the layout of the buildings, you see that they're mainly in an oval shape. You know, the T-pillars sitting on benches, on a bench, as it were, looking into these two central T-pillars. It's very much like a meeting, a congregation. This is a discussion going on. And of course, that was important at this time, because at this time in prehistory, at around 9000 BC, people were going through a very important transition. The transition from hunter-gathering, so nomadic hunter-gathering, to sedentary ways of life with food producing, so with domesticated animals and crops. Now at Göbekli Tepe we do not have domesticated animals and crops. They hadn't quite made that transition yet, but I think very much we are going through an experimental phase where, you know, that we're gradually experimenting with food production. But of course they hadn't actually made that step, and we don't have domesticated forms of those species they were experimenting with.
Simbol-simbol yang terukir pada binaan tiang berbentuk T di Göbekli Tepe itu menjadi petunjuk kepada para penyelidik dalam usaha mengkaji dan memahami dengan lebih lanjut kehidupan manusia zaman Neolitik. Jika sebelum ini secara umumnya kita beranggapan manusia zaman Neolitik hidup dengan berburu dan berpindah randah, penemuan Göbekli Tepe mengubah naratif itu apabila ia menunjukkan bahawa mereka sebenarnya sudah beralih kepada kehidupan sedentari, iaitu mula menetap setempat. Bertitik tolak daripada Göbekli Tepe, 12 lagi tapak di sekitarnya telah dikenal pasti. 7 daripadanya sudah mula diekskavasi dan salah satunya yang menjadi tumpuan terbaru adalah Karahan Tepe. Ia terletak kira-kira 35 km dari Göbekli Tepe, berada sekitar 75 km dari kota Şanlıurfa di tengah wilayah Anatolia itu. Seperti jirannya itu, Karahan Tepe juga merupakan sebuah tapak arkeologi yang menempatkan kompleks binaan purba zaman Neolitik yang berusia sekitar 12,000 tahun.
It was discovered in 1997, and we started to work here in 2 years ago. And you know, the archaeological excavation continue yearly 1 or 2 months. It means since 2 years we excavated here only 5 months, and we are here this year since June. I'm saying. Therefore, I can say it's a very new excavation. Even it's a very new. I can call this site, the excavation, one of the very important discoveries. Actually, it's not far to understand the symbolism and the Neolitic villages here in Southeast Anatolia. We know that from Göbekli Tepe, we have also same buildings, same T-shaped pillars, same animal figures, symbols, etc. But on the other hand, we have also different architectural features, also different finds. One of them is one of the important difference. You see the building here was dug in the bedrock. It's almost 8 meters in diameter, or around 3 meters in the bedrock. And there's a 2 entrances. Actually, one entrance we can go from the one big building inside, another end you can go out. It means there is a, if you go out in the different way, you are not the same people who entered in the building. Therefore, we can call it this place, it's a building which something happened. And in this building you see on the long wall one human head made by the bedrock, and it's displayed the man with the beard below the kini, and looks on the entrance, through the entrance, and his neck and the body made looks like a snake. In front of this hat, you see the 11 phallus made also by bedrock. It's not made it outside in the brink here. It means this building was planned before the start to building and then dug into the bedrock. Comparing to Göbekli Tepe, actually this early Neolitic started here in this region around the mid of 10th millennium and continued more than 1,500 years. We are now, we have 3 or 4 C14 dates. Oldest one is 9,400. What we have in Göbekli Tepe, the oldest is in Göbekli Tepe, 9,600. But it doesn't mean there is a older levels in Göbekli Tepe or in Karahan Tepe. We are somewhere in the same period.
Menurut Dr. Nakmi yang mengepalai kerja ekskavasi di situ, setakat ini hanya sekitar 1% sahaja daripada keseluruhan kawasan ini telah diteroka. Penemuan artifak barangan domestik kegunaan harian seperti pinggan, periuk tembikar juga arca ukiran batu menjadi petunjuk awal kepada wujudnya penempatan manusia di atas bukit di tengah gurun itu.
There are buildings, there are some huts around these big buildings, but it's now we cannot say this. They are the same time period, but the people are here. It means if they don't stay here, there is buildings are not here. Domestic buildings, they are not somewhere else. They are somewhere here around here. It's not so important. We are not talking about the Kaaba or the other sacred places. But just for a festival. These are the sacred buildings inside of the settlement.
Penemuan penting ini diberi tumpuan besar oleh Kementerian Kebudayaan dan Pelancongan Turki di bawah projek Tas Tepeler yang dilancarkan di Muzium Arkeologi Şanlıurfa. Projek ini melibatkan bukan sahaja Universiti Istanbul sebagai peneraju utama, tetapi menjalin kerjasama dengan ahli dan badan arkeologi serta saintis dari serata dunia.
Firstly, we have the architecture, the monumental architecture which isn't known from any earlier period. Secondly, we have the symbolism which is giving us a real glimpse into the worldview and the beliefs of the people at that time.
Zaman Neolitik dianggap penting dalam sejarah peradaban manusia kerana ianya adalah asas kepada penempatan, strata kehidupan, saiz populasi penduduk, impak secara global serta permulaan kepada sistem perdagangan dua hala mahupun sistem kepercayaan. Ia adalah titik permulaan transformasi manusia daripada satu sistem kehidupan berpindah randah kepada sistem sosial yang lebih sistematik dan kompleks. Dari bermulanya ketamadunan manusia, manusia telah berevolusi dengan begitu dahsyat sekali. Dari seringkas-ringkas kegiatan hanya untuk meneruskan kehidupan sehingga menjadi sungguh kompleks dan cuba melangkaui batas dimensi. Ketika hari ini kita merasakan dunia sudah terlalu ke hadapan, banyak lagi rahsia lalu yang masih belum terungkai dalam perjalanan manusia mencari asal-usul dan makna kewujudannya di muka bumi ini.
Yeah, the archaeology doesn't make it for the tourists, of course, yes. But everybody has a right to access the archaeological sites. We are going to do what we can to open the public. You can come here and visit the site in safe.
So all in all, is an extremely important site and is quite rightly a UNESCO World Heritage Site.